For Miami to keep their playoff hopes alive, they're going to have to slow down South Floridian CJ Bailey, who comes to town wearing Wolfpack colors.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's another epic Locked On crossover event. We're on Locked On Wolfpack. We're on Locked On Canes. We're on Locked On ACC. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We got Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We got Grayson Boone from Locked On Wolfpack. I'm in double coverage here, but I'm gonna try to hold my own against the two of you guys, as the Hurricanes are going to host the NC State Wolfpack. NC State coming off a bye week right after a huge win against Georgia Tech. Miami's coming off a bounce-back win against Syracuse. We'll have our predictions. We'll talk key players and matchups, and we'll talk top storylines. And Grayson, I'll let you start here. I'm going to nudge you guys into this one because, you know, the man who's behind center for NC State, very familiar to South Florida sports fans and Miami fans, CJ Bailey from Chaminade Madonna, who's having a tremendous year and a tremendous career at NC State. And he's saying all the right things heading into this matchup. He's not trying to make the Miami thing bigger than it is, right?
Yeah, I thought he had a great answer to a question in the media the other day, basically asking, like, you know, hey, it's Miami. That's your hometown team. Are you kind of getting ready for that? And he was like, look, I don't feel like I owe Miami anything. I'm just here to win this ball game. I'm playing for NC State, and that's my focus. It's been so funny to track this particular storyline because it's like when CJ has a good game, everybody's like, oh, well, he's going to go to Miami. But when he throws 3 interceptions against Duke, it's like, I don't think Miami's going to want him anymore. So it's just been this the entire season so far. Naturally, the last game that we played was a big upset win. So now everyone's talking about it because now the next game is heading down to Miami Gardens. But CJ has been he's been a delight. As a true sophomore, he's given us everything we could have asked of him, and it's sometimes more. Also sometimes less, which is kind of a roller coaster of a year here. But he has been an excellent leader of this program. He's been a catalyst for some of our bigger victories this year, especially against Georgia Tech. We love the kid, and we certainly are enjoying every moment that we do have with him.
Yeah, the CJ Bailey experience, he's going to make those plays where you say only 15 guys in the country maybe can make that play in terms of the good. And then there's also going to be moments where you say only 15 guys would be boneheaded enough to make that play to the bad. Now, don't get me wrong. The good has far outweighed the bad, but you look at moments like what happened against Notre Dame where there was an interception where you're 5 yards outside the pocket, throw the ball to one of the equipment people on the sideline, give some child in Notre Dame Stadium a souvenir, and instead it ends up floating in no man's land and being an interception. But there have also been times like you saw against Georgia Tech where he's gutting it out on one leg and throwing across his body late into small windows and whatnot, where you're just like, there's not a lot of guys who have the talent that could do that. So in terms of talent, CJ Bailey is a top 15 guy in the country. The thing is stringing it all together, putting it all together, being consistent, growing and maturing enough to understand sometimes the best play is just throw the ball away, take the sack, put it in the dirt, move to the next down. Those are the little things that he'll work on and he'll continue to get better at. But Donno, to you and all the fans down there, I don't care what part of Florida you're in. I don't care if you're in the Panhandle. I don't care if you're down there in the state of Miami, as they call it. We're watching you. You keep your gritty little clammy, overheated hands off of our quarterback, okay? You worry about yourself. You worry about the quarterbacks that you got on the roster. No, don't worry about CJ. CJ's wearing Wolfpack red.
And I just like pestering you guys, mainly Kenton. So it's like I sometimes play up the whole Bailey Miami thing on social media, but like in all honesty, I think he went to NC State for the right reasons, right? Because Dave Doran and company, they were showing him love in recruiting before Miami and a lot of others did. Like Miami, in my view, got on him too late, right? And I think CJ appreciated the fact that NC State was consistent with him, and they were basically first for him among, Power 4 programs. And I respect his loyalty. Or listen, and obviously people try to connect the dots. Miami's gone portal heavy at quarterback for the last couple of years. So, I mean, I'm sure that's a guy who would be a person of interest, but like, I don't have any reason to believe that CJ Bailey won't be loyal to NC State. I enjoy pestering Kenton on that on social media. In terms of Miami for this one, guys, I mean, there are secondary storylines. It's senior day. It's already Miami's final home game, and so it's going to be a farewell to the seniors. For Miami, of course, they've got an outside shot at the college football playoff. They don't control their own destiny. They're going to need teams in front of them to lose. But the big part of it on Miami's side is all that they can control is trying to win their final 3 games. And I don't look at this as an easy game. I guess Las Vegas thinks it is. They've got Miami as 15.5-point favorites. Miami betting lines have been weird all season long, as Kenton and I both know. But I think for this one, guys, and the College Football Playoff Committee has specifically said this about Miami. They need to see offensive consistency. Miami's defense has been great all year long, which is a huge turnaround from last year, but the offense takes quarters off. They take drives off. They took most of the first half off against Syracuse. And I'll let Kenton speak on this a second because he seems like he's got a strong take on this. But in a number of different games, Kenton, it's really taken. Miami needs to convert an explosive play to kind of get guys playing loose. Very, very tight. They look like they're playing with too much pressure on their shoulders. Carson Beck's demeanor hasn't been good in a lot of these quarters. Miami's starting quarterback, like, they didn't do anything against Syracuse until freshman receiver Dalen Upshaw had a 41-yard catch on a screen, catch and run, yards after catch, and that kind of sparked everybody, and the offense sort of got alive from there, but that was late second quarter. But it's been, the defense, Kenton, has been consistently good for Miami, like top 10 on defense, but the offense, you don't know who you're going to get from quarter to quarter.
Well, I think the biggest problem, my biggest gripe with the committee saying we need to see offensive consistency in Miami is Miami has done what they want on offense a lot this year. The only thing is what they want is a slow ball control, smother you, take the air out of the ball style. That style would not result in style points. They don't want offensive consistency. They want an offensive explosion. And here's the thing. I'm not mad if that's what you want, but say that. Say, I want to see this Miami team put up 50 points. That's what I need to see. You're playing against an inferior opponent. I need to see you treat an inferior opponent like an inferior opponent. Say that. Don't say, oh, the offense hadn't been consistent. Because how many games, Donno, all season long, you've got 2 losses. How many games through 9 games you got 2 losses? How many games did you think this is not Miami offense? This is not what Cristobal's vision for this offense is. How many games have you thought that, Donno?
I mean, it's usually been the vision. The vision has been power football, ball. That's been the majority of the year. You're right about that. The majority.
Okay. So I understand if you're going to say, well, the Louisville game, there were a lot of turnovers there, and that's problematic. Yeah. Sure. But to say, oh, I need to see offensive consistency, this is what Cristobal's offenses have always been. This man slowed down Oregon. I want you to take a second and think about that for a minute. A track school. A school that pours more money into their track team than some of these Power 4 schools are pouring into football. He slowed them down in terms of pace of play and the amount of points that they were scoring. So, this whole, I need to see consistency. No, you want to see them be high octane, which I think is a completely unfair request because, again, the name of the game is not to beat your opponents by 30. It's to be 1 point better than your opponent each Saturday or Friday or Thursday or whenever the hell you go out there because, Maction is a thing now.
It is. By the way, I wanted to ask you guys about possible injuries this week. I think our 2 programs that we cover, Miami and NC State, probably the 2 most secretive in the ACC in terms of like who's injured and who's not. Like Dave Doran and Mario Cristobal, they have a vault of injury lists. I mean, for Miami, there have been clues in recent weeks. I don't expect top running back Mark Fletcher to be back this week. Miami does have a deep running back room, including Gerard Pringle, true freshman back who had kind of his breakout game against Syracuse. They got Marty Brown and Jordan Lyle, but Fletcher has been Miami's best back. We don't think he's going to play this week. I'm not expecting OJ Frederick back in the defensive secondary. There is a message board rumor about another defensive back who may or may not be injured. The injury report has not come out yet at the time we record this, so I'm going to wait and see on that. But receiver CJ Daniels, we expect to be back this week, which is a nice boost for Miami. Anything you know or can tell me, guys, about NC State's situation?
Well, we expect running back Hollywood Smothers to be back. He missed the last game that we played against Georgia Tech, which opened up the stage for Duke Scott, true freshman running back. First collegiate start, almost had 200 on the ground. So got a little bit of a two-headed monster back there. We certainly hope that Hollywood will be back. Of course, we don't really know for sure because Dave Dorn likes to hold all of his cards close to his chest, but we think he'll be playing. Tight end Justin Jolie is another one. Also missed the game against Georgia Tech. He came up a little bit limp in that Pitt game. He had the Greg Jennings touchdown a couple weeks ago. We expect him to play as well. And also freshman offensive lineman Spike Souls, who has been one of the best offensive linemen we've had all season. We expect him to be back as well. He's missed actually the last 2 games. So certainly hoping to have a little bit healthier version of an explosive offense. But so far, so good, at least on the injury report that we can presume.
Yeah, it seems these two teams are going a little bit in the opposite direction in terms of the injury reports. But Miami, they have a lot of talent, so we'll get into that in just a few.
Well, and we're going to talk about key players and key matchups when we come back. It's an epic Locked On crossover. I'm Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We got Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone from Locked On Wolfpack, and we're only getting started on this brand new Locked On crossover. Folks, the weekend is almost here, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVPs on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. We got one from Miami and NC State. The guys mentioned Duke Scott, freshman running back for NC State. Last time he played, had his breakout 196 yards and a touchdown in the win against Georgia Tech. He delivered in a big way. Keelan Marion, speedy Miami receiver, delivered in a big way against Syracuse with 3 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. When the pressure was on, Marion and Scott delivered. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you know these performances aren't a fluke. These guys are on a streak. And just like Marion and Scott delivered for the Canes and the Wolfpack, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes, Locked On Wolfpack, and Locked On ACC your first listen. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the &1 sports podcast network, and it's the everydayers who made that possible. Thank you guys for your support. All right, and Grayson, I think you probably already touched on some of these when it comes to guys like Smothers and Jolie who are expected back from injury, but who do you see in this matchup against Miami? You guys give me your key players.
I tell you what, if NC State wants any shot against probably a very, very stout Miami defense, you're going to have to establish the run. Hollywood Smothers getting back in the fold, and maybe we'll see how much we get out of Duke Scott as well. Maybe he's earned some more snaps in the eyes of the offensive staff. I guess we'll have to find out. But NC State will have to establish the run, because if not, if you're forcing CJ Bailey to sit back in the pocket and attempt to pick apart the Miami secondary all day, I got news for you. There's a guy by the name of Rueben Bane who will have very different plans for the Wolfpack if that is to be the case. So Hollywood will have to get going early. This offensive line has a massive task ahead of them. Going to have to clear some lanes, maybe clear the runway for Hollywood to break 1 or 2 loose. But that, for me, might be the biggest key of the entire game for NC State.
Jacarius Peak and Teague Anderson are 2 names that you normally do not hear a ton because they're offensive linemen. They're tackles. They're pretty good at their job. In this game, if they do their jobs very well, you will be hearing their names all night because there is no small task. I mean, Bob Dylan wrote a song about a guy named Ruben Hurricane many, many years before Hurricane Bane was even born. That's how prophetic he was. Joking. I was about the exoneration of Hurricane Carter. Go look it up. Again, do the knowledge here on Locked On ACC.
I thought it was about Bane this whole time.
This whole time. That's what we thought.
60 years, I thought it was about Bane.
Never wrong, just early.
Just early. Bob Dylan was just early. But in all seriousness, Teague Anderson and Jacarius Peak are going to have to be there. The object of this game is not to make an offensive lineman a superstar, but it is to be a star in your role. The reality is Rueben Hurricane Bane had tackles averaging PFF scores of 12 through the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season. Now, granted, teams have gotten smarter and said, hey, everybody, that guy with number 4 and that funny little elbow brace, we need 2 people to go hit him. We need somebody to chip him. We need somebody to give him a little love tap on your way out before you run a route. And it's been pretty effective in slowing him down or containing him, because you don't stop a force of nature like Rueben Bane. You can only hope to slow him down. But if those 2 do a good job in the run and the pass game in general, NC State has a much better shot than if CJ Bailey is once again having to play hero ball in some very dicey situations.
Yeah. I mean, on the Miami side, there's some of the names you mentioned. So let me start first by saying, Miami's linebackers and safeties who may be drawing the Justin Jolie assignment. That's going to be super important because I don't feel like Miami's faced a lot of great tight ends this year. The one from Stanford was good, but Stanford had a hard enough time getting him the football with the pressure that they were facing. So when you think about guys like Wesley Besaint and Mohamed Toure and Raul Aguirre and the linebacking core, and then Zechariah Poyser, Jacoby Thomas at safety, like whoever's drawing the various Justin Jolie assignments is going to be super, super important, because that's not a guy you want to get going. He's probably the best tight end Miami will have faced to this point in the season. Of course, setting the tone with your pass rush, Rueben Bane and Akeem Mesidor, and something important, especially with Bane, he also grades out really well against the run. So like his matchup, whenever Hollywood Smothers runs in his direction, that's going to be interesting. He's got to be sure tackling Bane. And then, the importance of keeping constant pressure on CJ Bailey. And guys, part of this is obvious, and you could say this about Carson Beck as well. Every quarterback is better when they're in a clean pocket, right? But in the case of the 2 quarterbacks that go head-to-head on Saturday, they are 2 of the top 3 in the ACC when it comes to the difference in their passer rating in a clean pocket versus under pressure. CJ Bailey, his difference is 2nd in the ACC behind only Mason Heinschel at Pitt, and Carson Beck is 3rd in the ACC behind those 2. Yep. So the difference for Miami in giving Bailey a clean pocket versus giving him pressure could be, the difference in winning or losing this football game. Because if Miami's offense is inconsistent and the defense has to make plays, that's how you do it. So the job for Rueben Bane and Akeem Mesidor is really important. And then, for Miami, it's as Kenton laid out, Mario Cristobal style of offense, establishing a running game, they're going to try to do it. They're always going to try to do it. So, the whole next man up mentality beyond Mark Fletcher, who's unlikely to play in this game, I want to see another strong game from Gerard Pringle, true freshman running back, because it looks like he's your home run hitter. Jordan Lyle was that last year. For whatever reason, Lyle, who came off of an early season injury, just hasn't had the explosion that he had as a freshman last year. So it seems like Gerard Pringle is that guy who's going to bounce it outside and maybe create explosive plays, where Marty Brown is a battering ram. He's a cannonball. He's going to be, great for short yardage, and that's going to be his role, try to soften up NC State's defense. But I think Gerard Pringle is going to be the guy who's going to be trying to break out some big plays. And then Malachi Toney, I can't forget him. I know he's someone that opposing defensive coordinators have to give a little extra time to. And just, I think for me, Shannon Dawson, Miami's offensive coordinator, needs to continue to be creative with him, because he's going to get extra attention from the defense. But the idea of him getting involved in the running game, it's happened more over the last couple of weeks in, jet sweeps and end arounds, and then him even throwing passes. He can line up in the Wildcat. That's another risk. So I just think, he's the most electric player on Miami's offense. So getting him the football for me is paramount. And any, I think we've touched on it with some of the individual stuff, but any unit versus unit matchups that you guys think are going to be especially important?
Yeah, I got another really big one for you. It's going to be Carson Beck versus the NC State secondary, because our pass defense has been absolutely atrocious for the entirety of the season. We know that Carson Beck likes to air it out. I'm certainly expecting him to test them on multiple different occasions in this game. But when you have a trio like Tony, Marion, and Daniels, I view them as probably the three-headed monster that's the best, three wide receiving core in the ACC. I like, not even just by numbers, but just watch the film. Watch the explosiveness in these guys. I think they're the three best in the conference. Can NC State keep them in check? I have no idea, because you just had Haynes King, who's not the greatest passer in the world, throw for over 400 yards on you a couple weeks ago. That's a big I'd have to imagine Carson Beck is probably licking his chops when you're looking at just numbers-wise there. So that's going to be, that could decide the game very early, if we're being completely honest here. If you can pick over the top with Malachi Toney, forget about this game, or CJ Daniels, whoever. So for me, in addition to NC State being able to establish the run, if you can't slow down Carson Beck at all through the air, this could get ugly.
I'm going to tell you something. Grayson's talking about NC State's secondary against Carson Beck. Miami's secondary is as banged up as they come right now. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. That front seven has some legitimate superstars in it. But that secondary that they're going to be trotting out there is going to be the legion of whom. You're going to be saying, wait, this guy, who is he? Wait, I haven't heard much from him all year because of some of the injuries that Donno talked about earlier. The reality is, it's not only going to be about can NC State secondary stop, Malachi Toney and company, but CJ Bailey has death by 1,000 cuts multiple defensive backfields this year, because there's just a plethora of playmakers. You can go to Noah Rogers as your deep ball specialist. You can go to Wesley Grimes as a guy that is just an absolute burner. Teddy Hoffman stays finding ways to get open in the slot. You name it. And mind you, that's not even mentioning a Mackey Award finalist in Justin Jolie. So you've got guys who can do it all over the place. And Hollywood, the only place that I would say Hollywood brings something that Duke Scott can't is in the passing game as a receiver. His ability to get open in the passing game, that matchup there, the NC State pass catchers against this defensive backfield could be something special. And, that matchup to me could tell the story of how this game goes.
Yeah, and just on that note, players to watch in Miami's defensive backfield, Xavier Lucas is definitely healthy. He's going to be Miami's top cover guy. Damari Brown is having a pretty good year. He's been getting more work since OJ has been banged up. And then an X-factor player, and this is a weird one, because this player just made his unexpected return from injury. I had no idea he was going to play last week. Number 25, Jadis Richard, who kind of got his warm-up against Syracuse in the second half. A year ago, he tore his ACL against Duke, and I didn't know if he was going to play at all this year, and he kind of returned by surprise. And obviously, you can expect my dude maybe to be a little rusty, but he played like he was shot out of a cannon when he got on the field against Syracuse. He was in the backfield. He had a half a sack. He had a TFL. He got a little overzealous. He picked up a roughing the passer penalty because he kind of tapped the helmet of the quarterback. But, I wonder, I feel like Jadis Richard could be an X-factor player because he looked very well rested when he took the field after a year of hiatus from injury. So I wonder how much he's going to be involved in this game. But, all right, when we come back, fellas, it's prediction time. You got Miami at home, senior day. NC State looking for another signature conference win after doing it against Georgia Tech. You want to keep it locked right here. Locked on Canes, Locked on Wolfpack, Locked on ACC crossover rolls on the number one Locked on Podcast Network. Keep it locked. Folks, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team makes that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making this Locked On crossover your first listen. Alex Donno from Locked On Canes, Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack, Grayson Boone from Locked On Wolfpack. We're also simulcasting this on Locked On ACC. All right, guys, it's a 15.5-point spread in Miami's favor. I don't know if this is going to be like some of those other spreads that get bet down like 2 hours before the game when the sharps are all going to be betting on NC State. That happens to Miami a lot. It's a big number, and I would like to see Miami cover it because covering it could, earn you some extra style points with the College Football Playoff Committee. I'm going to pick Miami to win, but I'm going to be a little bit conservative on this one. I'm going to go with a 31-21 where it's like a dead heat for 3 quarters. And then, Miami maybe starts to break off some running plays and wear down the D a little bit in the fourth. So I'm going to have Miami pulling away late and winning but not covering 31-21. I think I think the offense, just based on what I've seen in recent weeks, I think Miami's offense is going to start a little slowly. They've got to show me that they're not going to do that before I believe it. So I'm going to go with a bit of a slow start and a strong finish. What about you, Kenton?
I'm disgusted because that is my exact score
prediction
as well.
And we did not compare notes, I promise you.
31-21, Miami was my exact score that I had as well. Because while I do believe that Miami is going to get out of the gate slow and all that good stuff, I have a strange feeling this is going to be one of those games where we walk away saying that there was just 1 or 2 plays where the ACC refed it up, or 1 or 2 plays where it goes away, where we're all stuck looking back like, man, if that 1 or 2 plays just turned out differently, this game goes way differently. Maybe,
does anybody know? Yeah, I hope Jerry Magalanes didn't draw the assignment, because when that dude is on the field, there's going to be 40 combined penalties if he's on the field.
Well, it feels like Jerry and the boys are on the case in this one, because it feels like we're going to have like a Rueben Bane strip sack or something like that just completely turns this game on its head when it's super close. And I think that Miami wins but does not cover.
Well, I'm not in the same house as the two of y'all, but I am in the same neighborhood. I have Miami by a score of 34-20. I don't love this spot for NC State specifically because CJ has really struggled against superior pass rush this year. Didn't look great against Duke. Didn't look great against Notre Dame. Miami might be the best of those 3 teams I just mentioned. So when you get CJ uncomfortable out of the pocket, really struggles to see the field efficiently and effectively. And I don't know. I have a bad feeling coming into this game, especially because I already noted the NC State secondary has not been very good this year. A lot of times, for reasons unexplained to Kenton and I, they're playing like 7 or 8 yards off the ball every single snap.
I hate that. Yeah.
And when you have a guy like Carson Beck who's not going to be afraid to sling it all over the field, to me, it just spells disaster. Even though Carson Beck has shown you he'll give you a couple chances to get back in the game. We'll see if that is the case on Saturday. But I don't love NC State's defense rising up to the task in this one. The offense, too, can you stay consistent against a better defense? That is a bigger question. The game against Georgia Tech, which feels like a month ago at this point, it's been 2 weeks, that was the best game we've played all season. Not just because we beat an undefeated team, but for 4 quarters, that was the most consistent game we've played on both sides of the ball, relatively speaking. Still gave up like 500-plus yards of offense, but can NC State be consistent enough to keep this game close and possibly win? I don't quite know. I don't quite know. So I have Miami by 2 touchdowns, not quite covering the spread, but it is very close.
I mean, but by the time it kicks off, you might be covering. Because, again, there's been a lot of Miami games. It's like, it's 15.5 now. It's going to be 12 at kickoff.
Yeah, could be.
Well, I'm going to tell you, when those Miami lines drop, that means a good thing for their opponents, ladies and gentlemen.
That means Jerry Magalanes is reffing the game is what that probably means.
Hey, well, we're hoping for a little Magalanes magic, if you will, here in Wolfpack Nation.
I'll tell you something else about Miami, too. It's interesting that, and Donno, you mentioned this, they don't quite have their destiny in their own hands, so maybe they'll actually win a game they're supposed to win. Because on the inverse, they've shown when they have to win a game, for reasons unexplained, there's some dribble down their leg. So I don't know. Maybe with a little bit less pressure, even though this is a must-win game for the Hurricanes, I don't know. I don't love this game for State.
All right, so we got a 34-20 prediction from Grayson, and we got 31-21s from Kenton and I. We will see what happens Saturday, 3:30 p.m. at Hard Rock Stadium. Always love talking with you guys. Great times here. Make sure you follow Grayson at gboone_. Check him out on Locked On Wolfpack. Also check out Kenton on Locked On Wolfpack and Locked On ACC. TGIF_Kenton is where you follow him. Check me out on Locked On ACC and Locked On Canes at Alex Donno. And we'll talk to you next time right here on the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.